Losing weight is hard enough to begin with, but honestly, it's not even the hardest part. That's typically keeping the weight off. You may have heard some stats thrown around before. A fairly common one to hear is 95% of people who lose weight end up gaining it back, if not more, in the long run. Now, some will argue that number is too high, and the original source of the stat came from some very old literature from the 50s. Though if you dig through this great paper, The Biology's Response to Dieting, the Impetus for Weight Regain, you can come up with some pretty staggering stats that suggest in the first few years post-weight loss, at least 70 to 80% of people will gain the weight back. I honestly don't care what the number is. The point is, more people will gain the weight back than actually keep it off, and this is a problem. So just know, if this has been a problem for you in the past, you're not alone. That doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. Your body is literally designed to make you gain the weight back because it doesn't want you to keep the weight off. So make sure you stick around at the end of the video to find out why this is and what you can do to not become another statistic. Alright, so I'm not here to waste your time, so if you don't care why this happens, I mean, I think you should, because if you don't know, you're already fighting an uphill battle. It's going to be an even bigger uphill battle, but if you just don't care, I'll put a timestamp here where you can jump to the part where I talk about what to do to make sure you keep the weight off. Okay, good. You didn't skip ahead. I really do think it's important, and there's both psychological and physiological reasons why it's so hard to keep the weight off. Starting with the physiological side of things, your body has this self-defense mechanism against starvation. It doesn't care about how good you look naked. It doesn't care about having a six-pack. It cares about one thing: making sure you live. So when calories get low, when you lose a bunch of weight, your body goes through a lot of different changes to make sure you don't lose weight too quickly and starve to death. If you think back to the early times, you never knew when or even if your next meal would come. So if your body didn't slow down its metabolism when you went through longer periods with no food, it would basically just burn through all its energy reserves, aka your body fat, and you would starve to death. However, that's not what happens. Your body goes through these changes and it starts being more efficient at storing the energy that you give it, and it does this by burning less calories through things like your activity, through the thermic effect of food, even your basal metabolic rate drops. So this way, when you do get some food, your body can use that for a longer period of time. And on top of that, basically all your hormones get screwed up, including your hunger hormones. You have one named ghrelin. This increases when calories have been low and you're losing weight, and this signals to your body that you're hungry. You have another hormone, leptin, which drops when you diet. This is a hormone responsible for telling you when you feel full. So you have one hormone telling you you're hungry. You have another hormone telling you that you're never full. Not to mention pretty much all your hormones, including things like thyroid, testosterone, basically everything gets screwed up. You can see how it can be so easy to overeat and gain weight quickly post-diet, especially considering your maintenance calories is now much lower as your metabolism has adapted down. So remember, this is all by your body's design, as it wants you to get back to that pre-diet body fat set point it had. So even though you've probably struggled with this in the past, it doesn't mean that you're weak or there's something wrong. You're basically set up to fail, but that doesn't mean you can't fight back, especially now that you know better. So don't go anywhere, and I'll talk about what you can do about it. But first, let's talk about the psychological reasons as to why it's so difficult too, as this is just as important because it can be hard to separate emotions. The thing that always takes people by surprise is they think once the diet's done, the hardest part is over. But even if you know about reverse dieting, which I'll touch on here in a little bit, the truth is the hardest part is still in front of you. Part of the problem is so many people don't even care or even think about what they're gonna do after the diet's done. They're only considering, what do I need to do to lose the weight? I mean, take one search on Google Trends and look at how many people look up how to lose weight versus how to keep the weight off after losing it. Everybody wants to know how to lose. Almost nobody looks up how to keep it off. So hats off to you. That makes you different, and I'm glad you're here. Anyway, what typically happens if all you're trying to do is focus on how to lose the weight? Most of the time, it seems like it's go on some sort of diet with a name that you think will be the best way to do things without even considering if it's going to be sustainable or not. Usually this means some form of extreme restriction, oftentimes taking away all your favorite foods, making you basically eat like a rabbit, and basically doing something that there's no chance of you being able to do for the rest of your life. And if you don't make permanent changes, how will you ever create permanent results? So if you do still have fat to lose, make sure you're considering this as you go through your diet. Learn how to include foods you enjoy. Don't look at foods as good or bad or right or wrong. Foods don't have morality. Not only that, but there's no such thing as foods that just store as fat. That requires a context of your overall diet, not just individual food sources. The other thing most of us don't take into consideration is we as people, we're just motivated by progress. We love seeing progress. Think about any time that you wanted to give up, you were losing motivation, feeling burnt out. These were probably during times when you weren't seeing progress. So even if you lose all the weight you want to lose, what ends up happening? Well, now you're not going to see progress anymore. So even though to keep your results, you have to keep putting in work, you don't really feel like it. It feels much less motivating because you're not going to see a result for your work, and now you're almost doomed to fail. So seeing physical progress cannot be the only thing that will keep you going. Otherwise, how could you ever possibly maintain? Okay, anyways, that's enough about why it's so hard to keep the weight off. Now let's talk about what you can do to make sure you do keep the weight off after you lose it. So the first thing is, if you're familiar with my videos, you probably already know this, but that is make sure you reverse diet out after you're done. If you're not sure what reverse dieting is, it's a process where you gradually increase your calories over time. And the reason we do this is because, as I mentioned previously, your metabolism will be suppressed whenever you're done dieting. This is especially true if you took a more drastic approach, as more aggressive dieting has been shown to suppress your metabolic rate far greater than would be predicted through weight loss alone. So if you bring up your calories too fast, whether it's intentional or unintentional, you're now going to be eating in a large surplus and gain weight rapidly. But if you take your time gradually increasing your calories, now your body has time to adapt along the way, it can keep up with it better, and your metabolism can start speeding back up while minimizing the amount of fat you're going to gain to get your maintenance calories higher. Not a lot of people want to do this process, but the problem is, if you don't, you're basically left with two options. You either keep your calories super low, stay feeling miserable, stay feeling very restricted with your diet, not being able to be flexible and go out and do more things to enjoy life more, or bringing calories up faster, which puts you at a much higher risk of gaining that weight back. Now, that doesn't mean it has to be some crazy super slow process. Honestly, how fast you increase calories kind of depends on what's most important to you. You have to understand that the faster you increase calories, the faster you're going to be able to improve your hormones and metabolism, start feeling better, and all the benefits to come with it, but the more likely you are to gain. The slower you increase your calories, the less likely you are to gain more, but the longer all this stuff is going to take. So at the end of this video, I'm going to show you how fast to increase calories based on what your personal goals are and how things are going. But an example can be you increase your calories by about 50 per week, and that could be a rough strategy. And when I say 50 calories per week, that means your daily calories go up by 50. So you eat 50 more calories every single day for that week, and then bump it up another 50 for the following week. And while this strategy works well for many, you have to keep in mind a few things. One is you now weigh less than you did before, so your maintenance calories will be less than they were prior to you dieting. As mentioned before, while this may seem like the easier part of the process, it's actually the hardest part, and this process can be extremely difficult. Your hormones are all messed up. You're gonna be really hungry. You're gonna be tired. You're gonna be exhausted. You might be irritable. Your body's gonna be fighting you in many different ways, and mentally, you're probably just over paying such close attention to this stuff, and you just wanna be done. However, you really wanna take the earlier stages of your reverse diet, basically like an extension of your cutting phase, and stay diligent to make sure you get into a better place first. Make sure your hunger signals and everything have stabilized before switching to a more intuitive approach. Otherwise, I promise your intuition is going to be to eat everything and throw all caution to the wind and then undo all your hard work. I'm telling you, don't take this lightly. I always warn people when they start the reverse that it's going to be super challenging, and oftentimes they come back later and go, I thought you were just kind of full of it, and I thought it was going to be the easiest part because I get to eat more, and holy crap, was I wrong. This is so freaking hard. And I'm not just speaking about reverse dieting here. I'm just talking about the post-diet period in general. But now that you know this, you know you can fight back and need to fight back, especially if you want to create this now lower body fat as your new set point moving forward. So be patient, the time for more food will come, and while yes, it's hard, it's also necessary for long-term success, and really, what in life worth having has ever come easy? Some other things you can do are make sure you're keeping your protein high. This not only will help you feel full, as it significantly reduces that hormone ghrelin that tells you that you're hungry, it also helps you get your calories up with much less risk of additional body fat thanks to its high thermic effect of food. Plus, this is how you're going to be able to build muscle, which brings me to my next point. Make sure you keep up with your strength training routine. Now that you're done dieting doesn't mean there's no point. And if you haven't been strength training, I'm telling you, start doing it now. It will help you tremendously. Nothing helps your body composition more than strength training. I mean, nothing. So you don't want to ignore this. And one of the most common mistakes people make is they only dial up their training intensity when it's time to diet, and then they lose their motivation and stop doing it when they're done. And you're going to lose all your progress if you do this. Plus, contrary to popular belief, it's not necessarily what you do when you're dieting that gives you the best long-term results. It's what you do when you're not dieting that will make the most significant difference. So a good idea here is, instead of focusing so much on your body composition and things body image related, now you start focusing more on things like performance-based goals. Look for goals that get you excited to go into the gym, get stronger, whatever it may be, to keep going into the gym. Another thing, hopefully you already have this, and that is a strong why. A reason why you must keep going no matter what. A lot of people will have this when they start. It's a reason they can't give up. Now that you've made it, you still can't give up. You can't be done. And it's just so easy to convince yourself in the moment that you don't care, but you always end up caring again down the road. So if this has been you, don't keep falling into that. Keep reminding yourself that you do care, and find some sort of reason, whatever it may be, that's important to you, why you should keep going. For some people, that's family related, setting a good example for a child, making sure that they don't die an early death they could have prevented. For other people like myself, the big thing that always keeps me going is the fear of regret. I don't want to regret getting older and wishing that I had done things differently and not taking chances and things like that. So don't let yourself regret these decisions in the moment for short-term satisfaction. Make sure you keep going, and I promise you, just not wanting to be fat, not usually a good enough reason for people to keep going. All this being said, don't take this lightly. You have to be okay with gaining some weight back. The chances of you sustaining and maintaining the lowest weight you ever saw on the scale all the time forever, extremely unlikely. You're gonna put some size back on, and that's okay. There's a big difference between gaining a little bit of weight back for more flexibility, for feeling better and things like that, than gaining all the weight back. So don't fall into, well, I've gained some weight back, what's the point? And then just going right back to the way things were. Understand, even the first few pounds can be things just like glycogen and water and has nothing to do with body fat. Weight and fat aren't the same, so don't get too tied up on that scale number. And always remember that your body and your weight are not what make you who you are. Alright, I promised I would talk about how fast you should increase your calories when reverse dieting based on your own goals and how things are going. But as you can tell, this video is already long enough, and I have a video on this topic already, so if you want to find out how to do this, then make sure you check out this top video next. Otherwise, I think you'll like this bottom video instead. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below, and I'll see you in one of those other videos.